Wednesday is one of Netflix's hottest shows ever, but it faces accusations of racist casting, as well as being woke trash. So which one is it? Is it racist, or is it too woke? I'm going to be answering all of those questions, as well as giving a review of the show right now. Welcome, Lady Day, because, oh my goodness, sorry about that, but welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to my discussion of the hit Netflix show Wednesday. We're going to be breaking down all the different controversies about it and also giving it a review. Three main questions we need to ask ourselves. One, is it any good? Is it woke trash? Or is it racist? I'm going to answer all of those questions in the stream, but you got to stick around to the end for the fun stuff. But first, my review. We're going to do spoiler free and then spoilers. My honest review of the show is that it's pretty good. You know, I quite enjoyed it, and it was really a fun time, and I was so happy that I couldn't quite predict how the mystery was going to be solved. So that's the biggest thing for me in this show, is that you think you have it pinned down, you think you understand what's going on, and then boom, surprise. You don't understand what's going on, and it was actually something else all along. I've seriously enjoyed that. Made me very, very happy. And now, another thing is that the romance was very, very good. So all in all, you know, before we get into spoilers, I just want to say that it was, I think it's worth your time if you like things that are subtly creepy, but not too overboard, and a good mystery with great acting. I think it's something that you can enjoy. And now, going into more spoilers, you know, I think that pacing, I was never bored with this show. That's one of my biggest and, you know, happiest parts of this, is that they seem to have skipped a lot of things that other shows would have kept in. And so many times I thought, oh, I understand what's going on. Now they're going to show me a scene where this happens to transition. Instead, they just skip right over it, and it's blatantly clear the next scene that that's already happened, and we're just moving forward. I felt that their ability to do that and keep the pacing going fast, I never felt like I was missing parts of the story. It's just that there are things that, you know, come on, let's go down to the police station. And instead of showing them getting into a car and driving away, they just walk through a door at the police station. You know, I found that the editing like that was very, very good, and it made for a very fast-paced story, and I was never bored with it. Now, I will say that the world building was a little bit undetailed. It's kind of more of like, oh, the school is there, and then, okay, all of these things sort of happen, and then no one really takes the time to explain, you know, the main difference or why the monsters exist or where they come from. They're just there. You know, the outcasts exist. Werewolves, sirens, vampires, and witches or strange people like Wednesday Addams and the Addams family, they exist. You know, it doesn't explain why. It doesn't tell me why. It doesn't make any sort of logical rationality for how this world... It's just a thing. They just exist. They're there. And so it kind of just sort of takes you on this... It kind of like takes your suspension of disbelief for granted, and that it's just like, oh, everything exists and this is how it works. Okay. They don't explain, you know, how the logistics of... They just don't explain it very much. So the world building is pretty undetailed. But honestly, the show is so fun, and the things that happen are so, you know, amusing that you kind of don't really care. And let's move on to the characters, because, my gosh, I actually really enjoyed the characters here. And I want us to start with Wednesday. I'm going to focus mostly on Wednesday for this, but man, her acting was great. She was very, very good in this. I would recommend you watch the show just for that. The performance here is great. Wednesday is very, very likable, but strangely enough, she's also kind of the worst. You know what I mean? Like, if I met a person like Wednesday, I would stay as far the frick away as possible. I do not want to be near a person who behaves that way or likes the things that she likes and does the things that she does. And yet somehow with the writing and the acting, she's brilliantly written, I think, in my mind, because this is a person that I would never want to be around in real life, but I still love this character. And now, a lot of times with female heroes, they're basically Mary Sue's. They're brilliant at everything, and they're great at everything, like right off the bat. They never make any mistakes. That's why a lot of those movies are so incredibly boring, because nobody likes a character that never makes mistakes, is perfect, and does everything right the first time. So boring. Like, so boring. Captain Marvel. Or Rey Skywalker. But luckily, Wednesday doesn't do that, because Wednesday is not a Mary Sue. It's in fact, she royally screws up, like, a lot. Like, I think almost every single episode she goes to do something and it gets messed up. And then she gets in trouble for it. But she doesn't give a crap. She doesn't care. She just keeps on doing those things. But I was so glad that she actually has to grow and learn and get better. You know, I like the fact that they didn't. This is not a story where it's required for a training montage or for her to how to train and be skilled and all of those things. But it is something where her actions have impact, and she needs to learn how to think through things and think about how her actions affect other people. And that is something that is really, really important, and I thought was very, very well done in this show. She's not a Mary Sue, and, you know, she gets people hurt. And especially in the last few episodes, people have to confront her and say, you know what? You're kind of a bad friend, and you're not doing this right. And so I'm glad that they actually gave us real character development. She's not perfect right off the bat. And, you know, it is a small amount of character development, but it's just enough to be interesting and engaging and good. And that's what I would say the majority of this show is. It's just enough of the right things to be packaged in a really great, streamlined way to be really, really fun and really, really great. But also, I want to say that my second favorite character was actually the bully, Bianca. We're going to talk about that a little bit later, and the controversy around casting a black person as a bully. But but I really enjoyed her arc, and all of the characters seem to have something really, really going for them, and they actually have a real motivations. But I was disappointed with the sheriff's arc in that he doesn't really get any closure. Basically, his worst nightmare comes true, and then you don't follow up with him on that at all. So hopefully season 2 we get to see how the sheriff is dealing with the fact that his son is the mysterious monster that we were looking for the whole time. And that brings us to, you know, the love triangle. I am actually kind of a sucker for romance. Maybe that's because I'm a hopeless romantic myself. What? Never mind. But I don't watch romance stuff. I only like romance in other genres. So horror, sci-fi, or fantasy. If you have romance in those, that's fine. And so this love triangle, typically I don't go in for teenage love triangle drama. I tend to view it as something that is beneath me, and I don't consider myself someone who is entertained by such things. However, this one was really good. And the teenage silliness was toned way down to the point where it was not nauseating. And the characters, for the most part, made sense, and they made rational decisions, and they weren't complete idiots that I couldn't relate to. Everyone in the show seemed mostly sensible, except for Wednesday, but that's part of her character, and so it kind of all works. And so the two dudes that she was with, you know, near the end, in episode 7, you think that, you know, what's his name, Ajax? You think she catches him. She catches the right guy, and she got him, and it's like, okay, they've caught the monster, and now we're just going to spend the whole last episode fighting that one bad guy that comes back from the dead or whatever. And I thought it was very, very clear that it was either the psychiatrist or possible twist that it was the principal of the school that was there. But that's not what it was. And at the very end of episode 7, I was actually happy. I was like, yay, creepy girl got a kiss. Hooray. That's so happy. And it's like, aw, dang it. She kissed the wrong guy. Crap. And so They totally got me. They pulled one over me. I thought the mystery was solved, and then it wasn't. The mystery was fantastic. I genuinely thought, I consider myself a smart guy. I was basically going through all of the different characters that could be the bad guy and thinking to myself, what if it's them? And so I genuinely thought that they tricked me. They got me. I thought I had it pegged at the end of the 7th episode. It's like, yep, that makes sense. And honestly, I was wildly disappointed because it was kind of obvious to me that that's what it was for like the last 2 episodes. Episode 5 and 6, I thought it was the psychiatrist and the creepy guy who did the creepy paintings. I figured, it's a good show, but it's nothing revolutionary. They're probably just going to go with the obvious thing. That was my expectations, and they brilliantly subverted it. I was very pleased with that. And so that is my review of Wednesday. The mystery actually surprised me. I got it wrong. You may not have, but I got it wrong. And so let me know in the comments down below if you guessed the mystery correctly or if they tricked you as well. They definitely tricked me. And now, moving on to is it woke trash? Is it? The show deals with a lot of things about, bigotry and outcasts. It's very clearly an allegory for certain groups of people that have been outcasts for society for the past while. And Wednesday Addams, she's obviously very for equality and helping people, especially since it's something that affects her because the world doesn't like her. And I don't think that means the show is woke trash. And I really want to get away from the fact that there seems to be this anti-woke mob out there that seems to be anti-everything that any woke person would ever stand for. So they're anti-equality. It's like, no, don't. It's like, no, equality is good. Diversity is awesome. Diversity of thought is also awesome. I like that as well. And so one of the things that I've been really thinking about is like sometimes we just get way too upset about these things. And so, we have to understand that shows reflect the times that they are written. People who are writing, they want to write about something that means something to them. And so to expect the show never mentions bigotry or never mentions discrimination, and then as soon as it mentions those things, that it's somehow a woke, leftist, ridiculous show, I think that's nonsense. That's ridiculous. And so I don't think it's woke trash. And the big difference for me is whether or not a show is too woke or a show is challenging. I like challenging shows. See, you can have a main character that is, has a different worldview than me and is put in a scenario where the right thing to do appears to be to act differently than what I would act. I love being challenged. That's what good writing is all about. That's how you actually teach people, is to challenge them with amazing questions and show them different characters going through different scenarios. That's how you teach people. So being challenged is great. Being talked down to and lectured to and have someone wave their self-righteous finger in your face and be like, see, you're supposed to do this. Like, no. That's trash. If I want a sermon, I'll go to church. That's what that's for. But if I want a TV show, I want to be entertained and maybe challenged in an interesting way. Best example of that is something like Attack on Titan or Code Geass. I love being challenged. And I think a lot of times the anti-woke mob, all they do is anytime there's any sort of challenge whatsoever, they just brand it as woke trash. It's like, wow, I'm challenged. I don't like it. Ironically enough, because that's what they accuse the woke left of being, but they act the same way. It's like, oh, you're challenging me with hard questions. Isn't it weird how we become what we fight? Like the anti-woke people are now behaving like the woke mob. Like both of them, this is both of them. It's like, what? You're challenging me? This show is trash. Like that's how they all behave. The beliefs are different, but the behavior is the same. So it's getting a little bit ridiculous out here. I do not believe that Wednesday is woke trash. It's a very, very fun show, and I freaking enjoyed it. But is it racist? Yes. It may, because it's not woke, you see, anything that's not leftist woke is automatically racist, right? Well, this is why it's racist. They cast black people as the bullies of the show. And to be more nuanced and more clear, all of the black people in the show are somewhat morally questionable or have moral failings. And so they're not the bright, shining, perfect saints that other characters are. By the way, I don't think there is any character except for the B kid that is a bright, shining, perfect saint. And he's not even white either. He's more like, I don't know what he is, but he's not white. So that's got to be like somewhat woke, right? But let's think about this for a second. This is absolutely ridiculous. I resent the idea of limiting black people and reducing them to only being able to play one type of role. Let's say Hollywood is 50-50. There are a certain amount of heroes that need to be played and a certain amount of villains that need to be played. If you say black people can never be cast as the bad guy, you've now reduced opportunity for the black community by 50%. Why would you do that? That's very bad. I do not approve. It's very... That's not nice. Why would you do that? You are reducing opportunity for black actors by saying that, oh, they can't be cast in this show. And I understand your point that all of the black actors in the show were morally questionable. But again, it doesn't make any sense because all of the characters in the show do morally questionable things, including the main character, which, by the way, is Latina. So, points for diversity there. Oh, and the main villain is a white dude and a white woman. And the black bullies turncoat and end up helping the hero fight the evil white dude. How is that racist? It's not. That's ridiculous. It's absolutely mind-boggling ridiculous that people would waste their time, waste their short lives whining about something so insignificant. It's a good show. And if we really truly get to a place where we've progressed to a good place as a human race, and there's no more bigotry, there's no more bias, there's no more discrimination, wouldn't casting just be colorblind anyways? And then, since all casting is then colorblind, naturally there are going to be some projects where it just so happens that all of the best qualified characters for certain actors for certain characters were black. And best ones for the heroes were white. Who would care at that point? Because we know it's all colorblind. But I think a lot of times if we train ourselves to believe that, oh, this is how the world is, then that's all we can see everywhere. So if you're someone who goes around believing, oh, everything is bias, everything is prejudice, everything is, discrimination. I'm not saying those things don't exist. They do. But if that's all you see, guess what? You're going to see that in everything. And that's no good way to live. We got to have a better perspective than that. So also, I would like to point out that the greatest villain of all time is black. Literally. There's this guy called Darth Vader I would like to introduce you to. He was literally black in every way. He was voiced by a black man. So this idea that black people can't be cast as villains, what, you gonna cancel Darth Vader now? Of course you are. Of course they are. Why wouldn't they? Why wouldn't they cancel Darth Vader? But in conclusion, Wednesday is a very fun show. I freaking enjoyed it. And you should go watch it because it's great and I think you'll have a great time.